Authority, Sayusa Valley Fire and Rescue, and Western Lane Ambulance District. Will you rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. So, Holly, would you do a roll call, please?
Absolutely. Cecil Valley Fire and Rescue and Wlfea Directors. Director Keith Stanton.
Present.
Jim Polisi.
Present.
Tim Mandolia. Lori Heppel.
Present.
David Carrillo. Western Lane Ambulance and Wlfea Directors. Cindy Russell.
Here.
Linda Stent.
Here.
Adam Holbrook.
Here.
Vanessa Buss. Mike Webb.
Here. So we have quorums, all three agencies. Is Dave? You here, Dave?
Yeah, he's on an airplane. He should have landed by now.
So he probably.
He was out of state visiting his.
Okay.
Yeah, he called Holly earlier today. He was gonna try to audio in. If he
Oh,
could.
okay.
That's fine, okay. Now, do we have any public comments? Anybody in the public would like to address anything on the agenda or address anything to the directors? Hearing none. We will go on to swearing in. Lieutenant Terrell. First one.
Change your apron to your uniform.
I'm bringing dinner in. Garlic.
Bear with us, we're finding our lieutenant. Yeah. Raise your right hand, repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Nick Carroll,
Do solemnly swear to do my duty as lieutenant of Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority to the best of my ability.
do solemnly swear to do my duty as lieutenant for Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority to the best of my ability,
To serve my commanding officers with respect and loyalty.
to serve my commanding officers with respect and loyalty,
To serve the citizens of our community with compassion, courage, and integrity.
to serve the citizens of our community with compassion, courage, and integrity,
To represent my fire department and community with honor and dignity, both on and off duty.
to represent my fire department and community with honor and dignity both on and off duty,
And to uphold the laws and constitutions of the United States of America, the state of Oregon, and the community to be protected.
and to uphold the laws and constitutions of the United States of America, the state of Oregon, and the community to be protected.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Thank you. Aiden? Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Hayden Lawrence,
Do solemnly swear to do my duty as a firefighter for Western Lake Fire Ambulance Authority to the best of my ability.
do solemnly swear to my duty as a firefighter for Western Lake Fire Ambulance Authority to the best of my ability.
To serve my commanding officer with respect and loyalty.
To serve my commanding officers with respect and loyalty.
To serve the citizens of our community with compassion, courage, and integrity.
To serve the citizens of our community with compassion, courage, and integrity.
To represent my fire department and community with honor and dignity, both on and off duty.
To represent my fire department. And honor and dignity and
And to uphold the laws and constitutions of the United States of America, the state of Oregon, and the communities we protect.
and to uphold the laws and constitution of the United States of America, and the state of Oregon, and the communities we protect.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And who is this?
This is
Tell them.
This is my grandma.
Yes.
Yes.
We do have one other firefighter we're gonna swear in tonight. He has not returned yet, so we will do him later. You are all welcome to stay. We appreciate having you here. This is the highlight of the meeting right here. It goes downhill from here, but you're welcome to stay, or you could get a tour of the fire station if you'd like.
It's on his way back from the call.
Yeah, we got one more. Okay, thank you for coming in and sharing this with us. Okay, consent agenda consisting of the meeting minutes from regular meeting July 27th, as revised, regular meeting August 24th, staff reports and correspondence. Would anybody like anything pulled out of the consent agenda for discussion? Hearing none, consent agenda is adopted. All volumes.
So for the month of August, we ran a total of 506 calls, which was slightly down from the previous year, about 55 calls altogether. And then year to date, we ran this fiscal year 1,078, last year 1,099, which is about 21. So we're over the last 3 years running about average for our call volume. Of course, is there any questions to the callers?
Thanks, Scott. Complete financials.
Okay, so last month, the directors approved resolutions to move money from LGIP accounts into the Wlfea LGIP accounts. Those transfers have been made. You won't see them on these financials because these are August financials, but you'll see them next month on the September financials. Also got an email from the state that the interest on those accounts is now up to 4.8%. I about a year ago, I sent an email to Mary Michelle. She was the actuarial specialist with PERS. And some of you who were board members at that time remember her doing yeah. So my email to her was, since we have consolidated all the employees into Wlfea, how are we funding these unfunded liabilities, for the ambulance and the fire districts? Because all the contributions are going to the Wlfea PERS account. I never heard anything. I thought, well, that's kind of weird. And so, but just this last week, we got an email from PERS saying that Mary Michelle is no longer there. And they've had a lot of turnover at the state, but they are addressing this right now. So this morning, we actually had a Zoom meeting that had like 5 of the PERS people on, as well as chief and our administration staff, to address this issue. And so with the side accounts that were developed with the money that went into there, they will be moving those side accounts to Wlfea, but it's gonna take, they're on a biennial schedule, so we will not see the consolidation and the new rates for a couple of years, 2025.
2025.
But it's in the works. So the unfunded liability for PERS for the ambulance and fire districts will be absorbed by the authority, and we will be paying towards those unfunded liabilities at that time. So they apologized for not getting back to me, and they are working on it, and they said they would get it all straightened out for us. I don't really have any big things to talk about with the financials, but I do have a few announcements to make. But before I make those announcements, does anybody have any questions on the financials? The announcements I wanted to make was Director Stanton emailed me last month talking about getting iPad covers and screen protectors for the iPads. And I wanted to open that up as an availability for any director. Before I went to order these for him, I wanted to see if any other director would be interested in having covers. And the screen protectors were like the plastic that go across the.
They're usually a tempered glass, very special glass, and it does protect these devices, which are rather expensive investments, because you can scratch up that surface and just peel it off on a new one.
Right. So is anyone interested in that? I'm going to purchase the set for him. Would anybody else be interested in
I'll
that?
take the screen cover because I already have it protected,
Okay,
please.
Yeah, I'd like one, please.
okay. Do you want the cover and the screen protector?
Do I need the cover? The reason I put in the possibility of getting the screen cover is because you and I, we have a keyboard and the plastic could easily break. And I always say, hey, if this hasn't dropped, it will be dropped. And so we're talking about a soft cover that will give a protection.
Yes.
Yes, please, thank you. Good, blind, drop, please. No, I'm not planning on it, but I just know that it will be dropped.
Okay,
It's
thank
just
you.
natural.
So I put a flyer at each of your positions about a conference coming up, the November 2nd through the 4th. This is the Oregon Fire Districts Directors Association puts this on, but it's also the Oregon Fire Service Conference. And since Western Lane Ambulance, you directors are now Western Lane Fire and EMS directors as well, we open up this opportunity to you. If anyone is interested in attending this conference, it's in Seaside. We will, if you just let us know, we will register for you and we will arrange your lodging arrangements for you. I just need to know, just hold on to those flyers, and if you want to attend, you need to circle which events you want to attend. Just drop that by the office, and Mary, who works in our admin office, she's our kind of event coordinator, so she would be able to get you registered and get your lodging set up for you. Also, a conference that is also coming up, it's still off in the distance, just to put on your radar, is the Special Districts Association of Oregon Conference, and that is scheduled for February 9th through the 11th. And so just put it on your calendar. We'll have more information for you when we get closer. And the last thing I wanted to mention was a couple of directors wanted Wlfea jackets. I brought up some jackets that are at the end of the table after the meeting. If you are interested in getting a jacket, we've got the different sizes. You can try one on and let me know if you would like to have one of those jackets. And if there's no more questions for me, that's all I have.
The meeting in February, is that in?
That is also in Seaside.
Oh, Seaside, or
Seaside, yeah.
still getting to know the state.
Thanks, Dana.
Seaside has recently redone their convention center,
Oh, yeah.
and I was there 2 or 3 months ago, and they've done a wonderful job. The convention center is beautiful.
Good. I don't think anybody here has been to the fire district directors conference. Just about everybody's been to SDAO conference.
Yeah,
And that's a good conference, but I think although Matt's gonna be there. this
I
year.
hear these are very good.
Yeah,
A lot of conflict this year.
yeah. You're gonna be there, right? Yep, Matt's gonna be there.
And so will Trish.
Yes.
And I will be there.
And
Yeah,
that-
we're already, so.
Okay, old business, again, it's not, we're not expecting you to approve the policies, these are only for review. Policies have already been approved. And just to remind, our intent was for the directors to have a few each month to go over, mainly out of chapter 1 in our policy manual, which is fire service role and authority. And then we've thrown in some job descriptions. Again, these have all been approved. And so unless there were changes suggested by the directors, then we would come back for approval process. I know, I've talked a little bit with Director Stanton. He's interested in possibly bringing out back the policy committee to maybe review the entire policy manual. I don't know, Director Stanton, if you want to add anything to that, or if that's
Sure.
still your feeling, or.
Okay, I have some information here. One of the things that we have currently on the agenda today is looking at ORS 198.190, dealing with compensation and reimbursements of governing body members. Statute may have come to light due to information given during the recent SDAO training for new directors like myself. Now, this is one of the policies which we're looking to perhaps add to the policy manual. Just got me a little bit ahead here.
We can wait and talk about it later. It's entirely
I'll
up to
take it
you.
right now.
Okay,
Now, the current policy manual, I understand that we pay Lexipol $3,000 a year, and they provide a steady stream of updates, which will go into that policy manual. There are also internally needed corrections, updates, and additions, such as what we're discussing later about 198. Any change to this manual requires the vote of the board, even with editing corrections. When I went through the manual, being a new director, I thought I'd best do so, obtain a copy, and I read all 818 pages. Here are some of the main issues that I came across. Of the 818 pages, 184 are written for the Wisconsin Fire Policy Guide and need to be removed. This is 1/4 of the manual and has nothing to do with Wlfea. Number 2, resolutions don't belong in a policy manual, and yet there is a single solitary one in the adopted manual. This is resolution 01-2017, adopted in 2017, which covers the charge rate for out-of-area transport in 2017. Yet, the current district policy manual was adopted by the board in 2021, after having been adapted by the staff and some volunteers from the fire district. Number 3, policy 1044 is a policy on the enforcement of travel restrictions under the COVID lockdown. I thought that was expired. Number 4, every office has or should have a style manual under the control of the office manager to cover the appearance of letters, faxes, awards, memos, etc., giving the type of paper, the paper size, the fonts to use, the layout, the formatting, yada, yada, yada. Our policy manual has a template for faxes, another one for memos, as though this requires a board level review. It's up to the office manager, isn't it? Number 5, there are components of the employee handbook, which really are up to the chief. And yet we have this in the board policy manual, which to me is a bit of micromanaging. For instance, policy 1105 specifies how to and requires the daily cleaning of the district facilities. Does this rise up to the level of the board of directors? Number 6, the manual starts with the quote, firefighter code of ethics, unquote, ignoring that we are now fire and EMS. The medical component of Wlfea is not very well incorporated into the current district policy manual. There should be enough samples for now. The current review of reviewing 2 or 3 policies per month means that if we go through all 818 pages, excluding Wisconsin, we're looking at 10 years. Now, the board could deal with each and every item during the general meetings, or it could activate the policy committee to deal with them, including the current under consideration of what to do with ORS 198.190. Should not this matter be turned over to the policy committee for review and study, making recommendations, as would be with any committee, bringing them back to the board of directors? And I would be willing to be his first appointee. Thank you, I return the floor.
Sure, thanks. Just a matter of correction, so that Wisconsin policy, that was an attachment. It was never approved by the board as part of the policy manual. It was there as an example given by Wlfea. So I don't think you can really, but it was printed out. When you print out the attachment, I figured you wanted to see the whole thing. So we didn't know it was there. Wlfea just, when they gave it to us, it was part of the attachment. So that's been removed. So that's 100 some pages that are no longer in there. So that's been corrected.
Wlfea did the same thing with my own department. We had City of San Diego as an example.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's not uncommon for them to give examples out.
Yeah, especially the request, yeah. And I think our mindset was that we just go through, was there about 10, 12 policies in chapter 1? We certainly can't go through the whole manual, but that's up to the board.
Well, can I make a comment on that? I think that yes, the board should review, my eyes are bothering me, new glasses. I believe that the board should only look into those policies that pertain to the board. I think everything that's operational in the manual regarding emergency response, prevention, training, everything should be left to the chief and the chief's command staff and rank and file. I truly don't believe that board members should be looking at operational pieces contained within the document.
And we are submitting, it's about 15 to 20 policies a month I send those to the officers and they're supposed to be discussing them with their crews. We do that monthly and then bring back feedback for us, so.
And I too would be willing to look at the policies regarding the board. I would have no problem doing that.
Yeah.
One possibility would be to separate out portions of this current policy manual, because a lot of them have to do with things which are up to you as the chief, not us.
Correct.
And yet it's in the essentially board policy manual. So we would have a board level policy manual, and then say a chief level policy manual, office manager policy manual, so forth and so on, but break them out rather than confusing and tying them all together when they really should be separate, so that we have a clear line of who is responsible and has authority for what.
Is it split apart for policy and procedures, or are they split?
There is a procedure manual as well. And some of these policies deal with procedures as well. So it is the fire chief's responsibility to periodically review the manual and update.
Well, that would be
And
those
that's being
things that are
done.
under you, which are appropriate, such as when to clean a facility. But we should not, as the board of directors, be involved with any part of that.
Right, so I think chapter one, I mean, isn't that getting at what you're asking for, chapter one, which is fire service role and authority, which has a lot, it has the board of directors in there, one of the policies.
Chapter one has a lot which is on the board level, but it also shows up throughout the rest of that manual. And so one of the things that the policy committee could address and debate is to whether or not to keep it all as one big body, having every various department put in whatever they feel is appropriate, or if we might separate it out. This would be one of the questions. And then reviewing and revising what is there is quite good for the most part, but I can see a great need for formatting. And I understand that with the constant stream from Mexico, that can be more easily handled by the committee as an ongoing committee, and then maybe once every quarter to say, oh, we have the following changes that are board level and require therefore the board to officially adopt these changes. Now, those things which are at your level, or the office manager's level, or some other person's level, we have nothing to do with, and shouldn't have, and they shouldn't be in the same manual. So I'm thinking that a lot of the details, which is what committees are good for, should be turned over to a committee to handle and then bring back to the board. So I'm proposing that we have the policy committee reactivated tonight.
That's a board decision.
Do I need to make a motion that way, or need a committee?
You could make a motion.
Is it Wlfea board?
It would be a Wlfea committee. Yeah, it would be a Wlfea committee. So it'd be a Wlfea discussion and vote.
What other boards do of the similar size of the department that we currently have? That, and what does the book of work look like? And it all sounds great, but then what's the time commitment? And, you know, there's more than just nominating and getting a committee going. I feel like this is something that needs to be discussed.
We're trying to basically, through the committee, to offload the general meeting for the board of directors to be dealing in the minutiae of the policy manual by moving it off to a committee of people who do have the time and resources and are willing to put in to deal with that level.
Well, if it's just the admin piece regarding the board, to me, that would be a slam dunk. It could be done within a month. But digging into operations is not part of our function whatsoever.
Exactly, we should separate that out.
And well, it kind of already is separated out. I mean, maybe electrical has a new format.
Well, chapter one is pretty much, that has to deal with the board of directors.
Correct. So maybe can we ask Lexipol if they can, I do know that they'll customize it, there may be a cost, but I believe they will break it down to where you basically have two ebooks. You have one regarding admin and board, and then the second one would be operations.
Well, I can make a chapter and put whatever we want into the chapter.
Well, then why don't we do that?
I think we already, that's chapter one.
It is, but I'm saying is there a way to break it so that it's separate? Is that what Director Stan's asking for? Lexipol to
All right.
we can ask Lexipol to run a query by word specific.
We can do a search.
Okay, if you want to do a search, what I'm looking for is that I don't want to see, I mean, this is a lot of staff time work. And your staff is limited as it is right now, correct?
Yes.
We are paying Lexipol to contain this document for us. Would it be better off to have them do a query search and run through and present it back to you?
Query on what?
Just to look into the pieces that Director Stanton's bringing up. He says that he sees pieces that fall back on the board of directors, or that refer back to the board of directors. Lexipol is probably gonna say, well, that's up to you as an interpretation. If they can do a cleanup search for us on our document, bring it back to us, let us look at it, and then let's see if we need to institute the committee. I would hate to see us jump in to this committee thing right away without exhausting all other channels first. Because we are paying them, correct? We pay them pretty good.
Yes.
So let's get our money's worth out of them before we jump in.
Now, the committee could also do that. And I query as to when you said it would take a great deal of staff, time and effort, when it's really the directors themselves who are going through the policy manual as it is now. I don't see much staff time other than necessary for the work sessions.
So then should we then, what you're saying, then, I'm not putting words in your mouth, are you saying that we as a policy group, including directors, look at our entire document or just those sections that do relate to the board of directors? Right?
We only have the authority to be looking at those things that are directly related to the board of directors and under the authority of the board of
Which
directors.
would be chapter 1.
We have here a job description of the chief.
Right, we're looking at them.
We have that under our direction, or is that under the staff?
That would be under us. The fire, we are the chief's boss.
Whereas the firefighters, that's his role.
That's correct.
So there is some in here, and like I said, once again, we can utilize Lexipol to do the query, to come back with suggestions. We can review what's in here and very quickly and see what things pertain to the board and what doesn't. It's not going to be all that difficult, as you said, but I feel that we need to have a mechanism, the policy committee, to review what's here, to look at the fact that there are a number of Lexipol updates, and some of those are board level, I would presume. Most of them are going to be operational. And that we just recognize that every year, the policy manual is going to have changes on those things that are board level. And it's a simple thing, it's not.
No, I know it's not, but I'm also looking at statutory requirements based out of the Oregon state laws regarding rural fire districts. I want to make sure we stay in the parameters of state law. I don't want us venturing out and creating something that could contradict the Oregon ORS. What is it? I can't remember what number it is. That's right.
When we use Lexipol, do we pay a flat amount per year and we can have as many inquiries as we want? Or do we have to pay every time we contact it?
Yeah, I guess I don't understand what an inquiry would, I mean, just to search the manual?
Well, if we ask them for something, is that included in whatever
Yes.
the annual fee is?
If it's, yeah,
Yeah, they won't, they should charge us. They better not charge us. That's part of their contract.
and they're very good about that.
It certainly would make the policy committee job easier.
Well, I'm just gonna say that if
I would suggest we table the motion, bring it back next month, and ask if we can get a little bit more clarification from Lexipol on exactly how it's broken down. So if you go back and you could say chapter 1 is all inclusive of all the board policies, if we could segregate it that way through a search, and then we could bring it back and have discussion as to whether additional action is needed.
So, yeah, I think I understand what you're asking, but to me, it's, yeah, chapter 1 is chapter 1.
Yeah, but in essence, could you have board policy and then procedural policy as separate? And procedural operational policy or procedural policy as separate?
I think they are separate.
They are separate.
Yeah.
So if it's clearly segregated within our manual, it should be That would be the only thing that, I think that's what the Director Stanton is after, is making sure that there's segregation so that the board is dealing with board issues and then issues that are operational are contained within operational policy essentially. And under your discretion.
Yeah, so, yeah, the only problem I have is just, what do I ask Lexipol to do? To search on what?
It's not like there's a keyword you can put in there to search.
They can do directors.
That's what you do. You give them the keyword that you want them to look at.
Right, I just,
And they will highlight,
oh, I can do that.
okay, then, but Mike, I really think we should ask, we're paying Lexipol. Let's have them do this, give it back to you. And then if you want to peer review what they've done, that's my recommendation.
I just searched on directors.
Okay.
That's,
I can't say it. Sure.
sorry, yeah, it's not very,
Are you in chapter one?
yeah, most of it's chapter 1.
I've got chapter one.
I think there was some other chapters. Towards the end, ambulance rates, which are set by the board of directors.
So that's why the transport, the extra transport for area people.
Okay.
Where are the various rates appearing in the policy manual? And are they board level?
They don't have, they're not in the policy manual because that could be set by, that's just,
But probably in 2017, we voted for,
That's when you
we voted for out of district people that are patrons that use our sand dune issue to pay a premium. In essence, if they're not paying taxes here, we ask for them to pay more.
Because one of the things perhaps is every year, making the adjustments on all the various pricings. Because that's something that would be boarded up.
yeah, we do that routinely. We talk with our
Policy
bills.
in here though,
What's that?
I don't see a policy on it in chapter 1.
It's 213, Western Lane Ambulance District Billing Policy.
So in chapter 2,
There are a couple policies.
that's what I'm saying, they're sprinkled around, let's gather them up. And put them through here so we know this is board level. And this is operational level, this is office level, things of that nature. We're looking at 198.190. The level is there. And that is,
That would be in chapter 1, board of directors,
but it's not in chapter 1 right now.
because it hasn't been adopted by the directors.
Right. And there's going to be other policies and changes that the board will face over time, of course.
I guess I'm not used to looking at things just strictly black and white. And yes, there's gonna be times that we're gonna have policies that cross over, such as the rates. And I just can't see where we can say it only belongs in chapter 1 versus chapter 2 or chapter 16, whatever. But because I'm not used to looking at things just, it's this line or nothing. I think that some of our policies that we oversee do cross a line, and that's why they're not in chapter 1. Is my feeling. That's my opinion.
Are you or the employees having challenges finding policy to guide their behavior with that Lexipol program?
I think the challenge is to make sure we're following what's listed in Lexipol, so it's there. We just gotta make sure that we're following that. Which is one of the reasons we, trying to get the officers to review monthly with their crews, Lexipol policies. So I don't expect a lot of changes to come back, but I do expect them to, yes, we read it, we understand it.
So they're in the process of reviewing it at this point in time of their.
Yeah, monthly, yeah.
And that's where I was saying that if they see something that's blatantly directors only, that they can bring that to the forefront and say, the board needs to look at this and pull it into their area.
And is Lexipol, are they the ones who have organized the way the map policy comes to us?
They do. We can change that. But we added, chapter, the last chapter, job descriptions. Just have that available to our personnel. But the rest of those were set up by Lexipol as a standard. Wlfea ambulance district billing policy, that would have been one of the policies that we generated. You see agency content. Whereas fire and emergency medical service authority, they have best practice, that was directly from Lexipol. So it allows you to adapt and update and subtract and add anything that you would like.
So are you feeling within the policy manual, you're finding what you can, or what you need when you need it at this point in time, and that you have enacted it in motion with your employees to see if we can polish it on an ongoing basis?
Yeah. One thing for example, we're really weak on is a travel policy. So we are working, and it's in a draft mode now, but we're working diligently to have that in there. And that's something, once we finalize it, we would bring that back to the board and say, this is our travel policy, do you approve it?
Well, as somebody that's been involved in writing policies and put together policy manuals for a large organization, I agree with Director Stanton. I think you need director separate from operational, from office. You know, if there's some kind of overlap, somebody has the authority over the other, so it should belong in there. Just to make it clear.
I think I agree with you. So are you saying it should be a completely separate manual,
Well,
or not just a separate chapter?
well, the way we did it was separate manuals.
That I mean, it comes with policy and procedure manuals.
Well, the procedure manual should be a totally separate document.
Right. So I don't know if we could add a third policy manual, fire procedure manual, and then director policy manual. I don't know that we could do that. I could ask those questions.
It would not create our own. I mean, like the office one, the administrative, one, whatever it's called. Exposed version.
The thing about Lexipol is that they update or provide you with updates. So if there's a federal change, a state law change, there's a suggested change in wording, they do that for us.
Yeah, that was the whole purpose of going to Lexipol in the first place. It was extremely difficult to keep up with the legal changes.
And they put all that housekeeping for us.
Yeah.
But even if you had 3 documents, they would still send, here's the.
I don't know on the third document, I don't know if they went on the third document, that I'd have to ask.
They seem to have on the Lexipol website currently 2 manuals, but it's like a web page that you could have, 10 manuals. So perhaps the question to ask Lexipol is there additional cost to break out these manuals, to add manuals, or anything along that line? Because right now, yes, there's only 2. but
As I just said, I don't know if
They could
they,
be 5.
as I just said, I don't know if they will do that, but we could certainly ask them.
Ask them to find out what the cost might be to go that way.
Again, though, I'm not,
I don't
why not just have a
understand
separate chapter?
the advantage of having this document and this document, if I can just have it all in one place to look at it. And you said that you wrote policies for other organizations and stuff. What size were they? Were they large organizations like the hospital? Or were they smaller organizations like ours?
35,000 employees.
So I can understand having to break it out through that. We don't have that many employees and, we're not Fortune 500 by any means, but it just seems like, to me, if you say the board belongs to chapter 1 and the operations belong to the other chapters or whatever, however, just
it's being separated by being in a separate chapter. I don't understand the need of having a separate document.
Well,
Instead of having 880 pages or whatever, if you want just the director's policies, yeah. So if you wanted to look at your director's policies, then you would go in and look at the first 100 pages or whatever, how many pages it is. And then, but then you can still go to the same place. And the employee can look at the policies for chapter 2 and chapter 3 or whatever the chapters are. You know, and it's just going to the same place, then you don't have a miscommunication of knowing, oh, you typed in the wrong address, so you're in the wrong document. I'm a retired nurse, I'm used to going to get my policy and procedure manual out, and I get my policy manual out, and I have one place to get my policies. And so whether it's administration policy or my policy, it's just, you know, I need to understand why it has to be a separate document and why it can't just be a separate chapter.
If it could be, all together, as you're talking about, in one document, the board could establish a policy, beginning, policy 100, that says the following number ranges pertain to policies of the board of directors. This section pertains to policies that are operational, this section, and spell it all out, so that if the public comes in and says, I'm having an issue with the directors, they can see, oh, here are the directors' policies, as opposed to saying, oh, this is an operation. So, I mean, if you're talking about having it all in one 600-page document, you could at least in the beginning, perhaps have a policy that says, here is how the numbers have been broken out. Chapter 1, or everything with 3 digits, starting with a 1 or a 2, are policies under the control authority of the board of directors. Those are number 3 through 10 are operation or something. So that at least the public can recognize what area they are dealing in and who they need to go to if there are issues, as well as the employees, as well as us.
Well, it's in policy 100. I've been reading it for the past 10 minutes and then going down. And we could easily just put an index to policy 100.
There is a table of contents.
Maybe hyperlink it to it or whatever. But it could be an easy fix to where a policy committee wouldn't be needed on a continuous basis. The policies we can review as a board on an annual basis.
Yeah, I think that in general, the reason we get into a policy committee is to revisit, review whether the policies themselves are still relevant.
In the right spot.
But the organization of it, I don't know if that's a committee thing. I think that's a directive that we can ask the chief to explore further. So I wouldn't be in support of going for a policy committee at this point in time for this purpose. Yeah. Not to say it's not relevant a little later, but I think what it sounds like to me is we've got an organization within Lexipol that's a little bit more difficult to follow than what is intuitive in coming up and saying we've got chapter 100 is all board policy. Because I take everything as board policy because we've delegated authority to have it created. So it's all our policy.
It could be even an item E under the 100.3 under organizational powers. This authority is authorized by Oregon law to perform fire suppression, EMS and related services, including but not limited to the following: fire prevention and fire code enforcement, fire suppression services, fire cause and origin. It should be fire origin and cause. Lexipol should change that.
Or did you help write that?
No, I didn't write this section. No, I actually did. That was before we changed. And then emergency medical services, and we could add section E pertains to board of directors, rules and responsibilities under Oregon statute. Something along that. I'm not trying to write it, but just put it in there as section echo E.
So where are you?
That's 100.3 organizational powers.
Okay.
The idea of the committee is to take care of all these minutiae so that we don't take up general meeting time. Because there's gonna be a whole mess over time.
It shouldn't. We're not that big of an organization, and I'm interested to see what, staff digs through when they're doing their prevention review, suppression, and this and that. I'm sure that the command staff and line officers are gonna have things that have to be changed because NFPA is changing constantly. So we have to refer back to them.
Right,
It's
and this
not
is
a fair
actually-
thing anymore.
This will be the third review we've done at that level, so I mean, it's an ongoing process.
It's almost a full-time, one FTE to just do nothing but this.
Well, it's an ongoing, I mean, yeah, just.
So
I just need a question, who seconded the representative?
Keep in mind that the policy committee is not to rewrite the policy manual, but to just keep tabs on things that are changing, things that are moving along, and take care of the minutiae, and then on a quarterly basis, whatever comes to the board and says, oh, we've had some major changes that Lexington brought in, this and this and this, we need to have it approved, done. And then once a year, perhaps, well, here is the change in the pricing schedule, we reviewed this in detail and so forth, and we really think we recommend that we follow this in here, put it to the board. The little things, the housekeeping, the policy manual, that as it pertains to the board of directors,
which would be chapter 1.
and it's going to.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Let's remove those that, well, if they're cross-referenced, Mike, can you run a query for us and tell us how many sections within operations the board is referenced? And it could be as simple as just something along the lines as when necessary or deemed necessary by the board.
So.
And if it doesn't need to be in there, yank the board out of it. Because we are entrusting you as the chief fire officer, CEO of the organization, to make sure that all of this is.
So outside of chapter 1 would be billing practices and ambulance rates.
Okay.
I just did a scan for the word board across the current policy manual, and there are 439 matches for that word alone.
I did directors, and there's much less than that.
Directors, okay.
334 group messaging, that's department directors. Governing body and labor negotiations, board of directors involved with that. That's chapter 10. SBFR generated one was current point value for our volunteer stipends.
The directors, I come up with 192 matches.
Is that referencing the Wisconsin thing too in there? Is it picked up anywhere?
It should, that's no longer part. I deleted that.
I just, what was provided to me by.
I don't think it searches attachments. Yep.
PDF match.
Yeah, I'm trying.
I think the majority of those are in chapter 1.
That's what I'm looking at. I don't know where it can, I mean, we shouldn't be even referenced in suppression. Maybe if there's something in there regarding cost recovery. I
mean, like annual recognition awards, the directors help.
The directors.
Yeah, so it's in there.
Page 575, perform other duties and functions as the board of directors may require or direct. That's past chapter
And that's in chapter 5.
Page 575.
That's under EMS services. I'm looking chapter 5 says emergency medical services.
So this is page 575.
Page.
What's the
5.
header on it?
What section is
What
that?
policy is that?
I don't know, let's see here.
Is that a motion? Or a second? Should we vote?
If discussions is, huh? Okay, we have a motion to form a, like, still there. A motion to, to form a policy committee. Correct? Was that the motion, Trish?
Activated, it will be done.
Yeah, to reestablish policy committee. Which would consist of directors and staff. So,
Yeah, that's the chief's job description. Chief executive officer.
okay, Holly, can you do a roll call vote?
Absolutely. Director Keith Stanton,
Yes,
Jim Polisi,
No,
Tim Mendolia? No. Lori Heppel?
No.
There we go. Cindy Russell?
No.
Linda Stent?
Yeah.
Adam Holbrook?
No.
And Mike Webb?
That's everybody. What was the result? What was the count, Holly?
I did not hear Mike Webb's, but I have two.
Mike said no.
Mike said no. I have 2 yes, everyone else said no.
Okay, motion does not pass. But I'm happy to work with you on the policy manual. Okay. Did Let's Pull ever contact you?
we utilize a different browser on the pad.
Okay.
It bypassed the Apple problems, and I was able to get in, and I'd be happy to give you some suggested
Absolutely.
changes for review on your level.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
can I ask that the 3 board presidents be included in that we know what's being discussed?
Sure.
So we can also add to it if necessary, or just be able to vet it and help both of you?
Yeah.
Sure. I don't want to put words in Cindy's mouth over there, but.
It's fine. Works for me. Works for me.
So back to our old business. So were there any recommendations for changes for job descriptions of office manager and worker program manager? Or again, this is just review, or you're going to approve policy 106 or 107? Any suggestion for changes? Yes, we'll do that. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to jump back in the agenda. We have our next firefighter to swear in here.
I can hear
Can I ask that?
This is Bo Campbell that recently finished up the firefighter 1 academy.
He is a legacy. That's his proud papa coming up here. So raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Bo Campbell,
Do solemnly swear to do my duty as a firefighter for Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority to the best of my ability.
do solemnly swear to do my duty as a firefighter for Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority to the best of my ability.
To serve my commanding officers with respect and loyalty.
To serve my commanding officers with respect and loyalty.
To serve the citizens of our community with compassion, courage, and integrity.
To serve the citizens of our community with compassion, courage, and integrity.
To represent my fire department and community with honor and dignity both on and off duty.
To represent my fire department and community with honor and dignity both on and off duty.
and to uphold the laws and constitutions of the United States of America, the state of Oregon, and the communities we protect.
and to uphold the laws and constitutions of the United States of America, the state of Oregon, and the communities we protect.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. Okay, new business. So hopefully, all the directors had a chance to look at it's a really, very much a draft proposal of a new admin building and remodel of this. What I'm asking, if you have any suggestions for modifications, it's really early for that, but what I would like to do is get approval to take the next step where we get a cost estimate. Start costing this out, what it would cost, and then, of course, that's when we have the tough discussions at that point.
I didn't see a solid for the board of directors. Other than that, it's pretty good.
It was an expedition.
Next to the driving range.
That's where the staff fixed our dinner every night. We had board
Yes.
meetings.
Driving range / LZ, so we can justify it. So if there's no objection, we'll contact the architects and say, you know, what is this dream gonna cost us? And then, like I said, then the tough discussions.
Gas.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And they estimated, it's $500 to $600 a square foot now.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
It's for the prevailing wage, like.
Oh,
Cost of materials.
well.
So when he
that's
said that,
interesting.
my idea of the admin building just sort of
Is
imploded.
that also for the type of materials? I mean, so say if you went to steel studs versus wood studs.
I have no idea. Yeah.
That's well, I don't want to get sidetracked. One of my cousins, she lost her home in the Maui fire.
Oh, no.
She's part of the rebuild. They don't have enough materials. They're scrambling for rebuild. It's unbelievable. So it doesn't surprise me when I hear $500 to $600 a square foot.
Yeah,
And that's just the building. That's not furnishing or anything.
yeah, yeah.
Interior decorator.
Holy.
So, yeah, so once we get that number, and again, that'll just be a potential number, then we'll really have to have the board of directors weigh in. At that point. Okay,
Chief Schick, does that also include them looking at alternate methods of construction, meaning prefabricated construction? Because they do make those now where you take an office and it comes in a module. The modules are built off-site, brought to site.
now it was just a matter of, they said that's what buildings are going for. There was no talk about
Okay.
how we can reduce that cost. Yeah,
As we go down the road.
right, exactly.
But also talking for government buildings, ADA requirements.
The fact it's earned warrants,
Yes.
because we've had a lot of work done and it costs a lot more here than it does over in the valley.
We were on the last building. we
And
were
you're limited
$500.
on who you have.
And you're not lucky to get big work.
I'm afraid.
Geo, if you want to build.
Yes, like I said, that's, yeah, okay.
All right.
So the next item is a review of our mutual aid agreements. Yeah, I think I listed them and I have them if you want to look at them, but some of them are pretty old and I just thought it was time to review those. They all either reference SVFR or Western Angeles District. It should reference Wlfea, so I'd like to change that. A major change though, and Director Polisi and I have talked about this a lot, is right now, we have automatic aid agreements with Mapleton and Swiss Home Deadwood. I would prefer to change that to mutual aid, so if they have a need for us, they ask us. And of course, we respond if able. Right now, we get toned out at the same time. There's no, I mean, that are looking at the call, do we really need a CFR or Wlfea to respond? We're sending an engine to Mapleton or Swiss Home right away. It puts them on the road when potentially they will need to be on the road. So I would rather we change it to a mutual aid agreement, which is pretty standard. And if they need us, they call us. It would delay our response a little bit because we're not going out the door immediately, but again, I mean, they're good departments, it's their districts. I mean, if they need us, they'll call us.
It doesn't affect Western Lane though.
It doesn't affect our ambulance response at all, and we would, probably, depending on the call type, send an engine where it is, depending on where it is, because a lot of our ambulance service area is not in Mapleton or Swiss Home or around Florence, so we would never leave our ambulance out there by themselves.
That's driving.
Yeah.
So the casino is a separate contract with them?
We have a separate contract with them, yeah. And
That's not considered mutual aid with them?
no, that's our primary response area.
I think a fresh mutual aid agreement, especially with the upriver communities, they would understand what they're getting and what they're getting.
Right, exactly.
Have we heard anything more from the 10-mile creek people?
You were at the last meeting, right? Yeah, no, I haven't heard,
You have the town hall.
yeah, the town hall meeting, yeah, you were there. I haven't heard anything from them. It's in their lap. I mean, if they want to annex, then they have to come and say, well, I said, I'd like to see that most of their community wants to annex.
Right.
And then I would bring it to the board of directors. Then they have to convince you guys. And I just talked to a resident, where do you live? Big Creek, which is north of our Station 3 up North Fork. And he talked about annexing in. I had the same discussion. It doesn't guarantee you a quicker response. But if you want to pay us money for a slower response, we do that. But so there's a lot of interest out there. Okay. Review, yes.
Chief, the Zoom, we're having technical difficulties again, so I'm going to end the meeting and restart the meeting.
Okay.
So the agenda item of the review of ORS 198 is basically to see if the directors want to add this to our policies. Currently, we do not have it in our policies to pay a member of the governing body $50 for each day or compensation for services performed when they do government-related work, such as going to trainings or coming in for meetings and so on. So I just open it up to the board for discussion if they would like to adopt ORS 198.190 into our policies.
This is very common in Washington State. I'm surprised it's not. Washington State, the directors get $104.
Did Oregon just pass this year? The school district came up
The
with
school
something.
district just voted on it also, just last week.
You know when this,
Their amount was extraordinary.
you know when this came into effect, Dina? Is there a date on it?
Oh, that was.
Well, it started in on the ORS form that's in the packet, 1971.
If I might chime in on this, since I probably instigated this.
That's fine.
At the SDAO training, this matter was brought up. And basically, they mentioned that various districts, that the stipend, which is up to $50, covers the non-reimbursed expenses as well as compensating those who had to divert their economic activity to accomplish official district duties. Some districts vary, they may provide zero. Remember, it's $50, but it could be $20, $40. Some of them will do it for those who are out of the area by the trip for training or conference. And some do it for any day that there's anything involving the directors, like a meeting or a conference or whatever. So it's quite a wide range, and it has been around for some time. I myself had submitted a planning trip cost claim, and I included the $50 as there was no direction in our policy manual, nor any from the staff. And that brings us to where we are now.
So we're the only volunteers for the volunteer fire department that don't get paid.
At this time, that is correct.
It's a good one.
And like I said, in Washington State, it's very common, it's $104, there's an annual limit of almost $10,000. That was,
Per person,
yeah, per director.
per director.
And that was, so if they had a meeting with me, a 5-minute meeting, they would put their $104 request in. That was, it's pretty, I mean, that was
Oh, that's
standard.
pretty loose. Do they put a maximum of how many hours a week? Anything like that, or is it just a cap limited dollar wise?
It's annual cap, 10,000. I don't think that's, in Oregon, I don't think there's a cap. That's just Washington, and it was $104.
There isn't a cap by the ORS, however, it's up to each district and the board to decide. And they can set it up however they want, just as long as they don't exceed $50 per day. So what's that applied to, and if it's gonna be $50, is up to the board to
Yeah,
decide.
so that'd be a stipend, so 1 hour meeting or a 20-hour meeting,
Exactly.
$50.
Or if I decide to come in and chat with you for.
You can charge them.
Technically, you could do that.
It's up to the board to decide, and that's the policy.
You can donate it back.
Can we voluntarily just say this director doesn't want to participate
In
in that?
Washington, you could, the directors could opt out.
Because I personally would not. I would rather see the $50 go to the $600 a square foot. Still swallowing that.
That should only take us like 30 years.
Spear's gonna need it.
I think with the district paying for us to go to our conferences and our travel expenses for that, I think that's more than reasonable for.
I agree, but I mean, if
Because
the
we
director
voluntarily
chooses,
stepped into this knowing we were not.
yeah,
gonna be-
uncompensated
We-
elected
yeah.
official.
And I think it's
Well, you guys do a lot of work.
personally, it's
though.
your civic to give.
I would
back.
not begrudge you $50 for a meeting.
Yeah, but it should go back into the community and the taxpayers, and it can go into jackets, it can go into other things,
Construction costs.
construction costs.
Well, this process on this is, first off, the board of directors established a policy of any payment at all, there is. And then what that payment is, the second would be that when somebody does whatever would trigger such a payment, if there is a policy offering such a payment, that they then would submit a claim. So if you don't submit a claim, then you don't get paid.
Yeah.
That's simple. And if the board says, we want to have a policy that says only out of area trips due to diversion of economic activity on the person's part, $40 a day, okay. So step one, is there a policy that will establish a payment or not? And then step two, having a claims form for those who wish to submit a claim when the payment is triggered.
Would you like to make a motion?
No.
Okay. Would any director like to
I
make a
think first we
motion?
have to figure out if we all agree that we should be paid or not.
We can do a
I think I could
consensus.
do a consensus on that first before you know what motion to make as far as the policy to accept or deny the policy.
So how many directors would be in favor of allowing directors to receive stipends? Raise your hand. That work?
Well, would I take it? I wouldn't stand against other.
But you'd be okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't stand against a director who chooses to do it.
Okay, let me reword that. If you would be in favor of any director receiving compensation, not necessarily that you have to, raise your hand. So that's
So it would be voluntary. Should we wait for the other?
You have a quorum.
Oh, okay, I just didn't, I mean, I don't know if it's something that they would
We
want to
waited for
discuss.
everybody to show up.
Yeah, that's true. They can,
Is this a Wlfea decision?
It's a Wlfea policy, wouldn't it be?
yeah, would,
Okay,
So we need,
We have,
so we have a
but do
quorum
all,
for Wlfea.
I think all three directors have to vote in favor of it. And 3 of the 4 would have to vote in favor of it. If that makes sense.
Steve, can you let the record show how many hands were raised? Because we couldn't see that on the recording.
Yeah, we're still discussing that. So a quorum for Wlfea is 6.
Correct. See, if you have 2 dissenting votes, then it doesn't count.
On one side. If there's only 3. So raise your hands again, please. I'm sorry, raise your hands if you're. So that would not pass. So for Wlfea.
so at this point, we would have enough votes.
So this was just a consensus, it wasn't an actual vote, Dina?
That's
There were
correct.
2
It was just open for discussion, and if the board was willing to move forward with it, we would present either a resolution or a policy next month.
Right, so there was 2 on each side that voted in favor of moving forward with that.
Only 2 on each side?
Correct.
At this point, if a person were to submit for mileage reimbursement going away, meals, that stuff, they get reimbursed for that.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Part of
It's
the
just the extra,
It's a $50.
it's the 50, 40, whatever the board decides is the magic amount.
Yeah, any travel costs, conference costs.
yeah, I'm not opposed to seeing a policy on this, but let it be very well written and clear that it is voluntary by the director if they choose. Because I don't want the,
I think at this time, Jim, we're not gonna move forward with it.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right. Because I agree with what Lori said, I mean, we all took this on knowing that it's a uncompensated elected position. Yes, the district does cover our training and travel and everything, and that's great. I've gone to training and never submitted anything, just because I choose personally to give it back to the community. I knew full well going into this that, no monies.
And just like you and I, Jim, that we have no change in our income level because we go to a conference because we're not actively working
That's
a
right,
job, whereas like Mike,
that's different.
that's different. So.
But at the same time, my job encourages me to be involved in this spot, so I get paid salary
To
to
do
make
it.
sure I'm involved in the community. So I wouldn't ask for the money,
Yeah.
but I can see people that are.
But I can
deciding.
understand somebody, have we seen the Oregon statute as written? I mean,
It's
does
in-
it stipulate dollar amounts?
And keep in mind that, just like your travel, you submit a claim to be reimbursed for travel, or you can choose not to. So ORS 198.190 basically says, if you submit a claim, okay, if you don't,
Right,
you're making a choice personal.
Well, I live in Lane County and I come over here and I want to do the right thing and support this community because I have a house over here too. And so I don't look at any compensation because I really enjoy what I do with this board and I support the fire service and the EMS folks and I see what they do. So for me, it doesn't feel right. And when I looked at signing on, it didn't say I was gonna get paid, and there is no expectation that I'm gonna get paid. And I'm honored that my registration fees, my hotel's paid for, and I like the fact that I can join in and have a dinner with other directors at a conference. And it's more about relationships, and again, doing the right thing. And that is just where I stand on that.
Yeah, personally, I feel more value not picking any money for it, giving me that. So it's fine.
So do we need to have a resolution or something for Dina to pull out for next meeting stating that we are opting out or?
I
And how
think
we
at
vote
this,
on that
at
next
this
meeting?
point, the decision is not to move forward.
Okay, so but if we
The
just ignore
consensus.
it, does it go away? Or
Yes.
do we need to have,
Nope.
say, we have voted and we have decided this sitting board now has voted not to have it? So that it's clear that there's no ambiguity about it, if another director comes in, like director over there did, and is looking for the policy. Do we need something that says, we have a policy that we're not following it, policy?
Which you can change at any time.
Yeah, so we can change it anytime.
If you want to do that, we could do that.
I would point out, Cindy, that the reading of 198.190 basically says it's up to the district. So they don't use any shall words, they use may, if I may read it. A member of the governing body of the district may receive an amount not to exceed $50 for each day or portion thereof as compensation for services performed as a member of the governing body. Such compensation shall not be deemed lucrative. The governing body may provide for reimbursement of a member for actual and reasonable travel and other expenses necessarily incurred by a member in performing official duties. So I think the purpose for 198 was probably to say, we're gonna limit this to $50 a day. But it's up to the board, it's up to the district to decide if they want to do it.
So do we need something that says that we've decided we do not want to do it?
It says here, governing body may provide for
May
reimbursement.
provide, so you have to
If
say,
this governing
yea or
body
nay.
does not provide for reimbursement, then no policy probably would be necessary.
So
I just want to
are
make
you
sure that, so
saying
somebody
that
else coming in.
it's not up to the board, since Oregon law provides for it, it should just be up to the director to submit or not
It's up to
submit?
the district to decide if they're going to partake from what he read today.
The district, for instance, provided me a travel reimbursement claim. Well, if the district doesn't provide a daily stipend claim, then it becomes a moot issue.
But if you read this, it says a member of the district may receive an amount, doesn't say board approved.
Right, well, there's basically, I believe that this is saying, we do not want this to be lucrative, we don't want people to get $200 a day or whatever, we're gonna place a limit legislatively in the Oregon revised statutes that says only $50 if there is any. But then that second portion that says that the governing body may provide, so it's up to the governing body, and the process there would be that, there would have to be some sort of claim form for us to.
Actually, that's not what it says. It says a member of the governing body may receive. It doesn't say the governing body may provide.
The governing body may provide for reimbursement of a member for actual and reasonable travel and other expenses necessarily incurred by a member
And that we do.
performing official duties.
And that we already do.
And so like travel, you have a form. Currently, you don't have a claim form for this. So right now, the district is not providing for reimbursement.
For a stipend, $50 stipend.
Any portion of a stipend based on
Correct.
doing duties.
Right.
You want a resolution next month, saying no?
Get down into the minutiae of the law.
Oh, yeah, that's why lawyers get so much money.
But that's why they use the word may, and they say the district may.
I personally think we need something
That says no.
that says no. So it
Oh, you
doesn't
can
come back-
do that.
It doesn't come back and bite us.
So we could ask Dina to prepare a resolution that says we are not taking advantage of the daily stipend for the state.
It does not provide a daily stipend. Period.
Did you hear that, Dina? Or
Yes, I
Trish?
did.
Okay,
You can hear us? Wow.
we'll bring that to the next meeting then
Yeah.
for discussion.
Consider we don't have a microphone.
Thank you. So, job descriptions and policies for next month to be reviewed. Reviewed, only do chief lieutenant and 102 chief executive officer and 109 chief performance appraisal. Time for director comments.
I have one, two, maybe three, four, something, but I won't take a bunch of time. I just want to say I was honored and I got to be able to go to the paramedic celebration at LCC. Derek Mullen was there, Dawn graduated. Unfortunately, you were working. I thank you. I didn't have an opportunity to do pictures with you. I'm not really dressed up for it today, but I am very honored that you guys are out there. You went for advancing your education and yeah, I'm very honored to be your director, as I think everybody else here is too. So I want to take that moment and appreciate you and your group.
Absolutely.
And I'm done.
And we did help support financially, which I think is the least we can do for our people out there in advance. We're glad to do that.
I do, well, I take that. Derek Mullins, just the amount of work and time that he spends with the paramedic program. I do want to do a shout out and tell him, if he's listening, how much work and value and I see what he does and it's very amazing. Those folks put a lot of energy into your class and yeah, it was wonderful.
We have a lot of the paramedics that are instructors,
Yes.
that I think is just, they.
And they are very good about
they're young,
steering
they
you to the
develop
best. Yeah, they steer the best candidates to us for part-time or full-time employment, so it works out really well.
I thank you guys for a good spirited meeting, and I'm concerned about the shirt that Lori's wearing. As a cyclist.
Any other director comments? This is your time. Okay. We're not gonna have an executive decision. We had a personnel matter. We're still working with attorneys through. I anticipate probably next month. We may or may not have an executive session on this. There's just nothing we can talk about tonight, unfortunately. And our next meeting is Thursday, October 26th at 6 p.m. Meeting is.
I will be out of town.
Now where are you going?
Greece.
Well, have a wonderful time.
Yeah,
Bring
Have a
back
safe trip.
pictures.
thank you.
Yes.
She brought back pictures of a.
Where did you just come back from?
Australia.
Oh, my Lord.
You want to see a picture of a platypus in motion? I got one.
It's almost like you work for the CIA or something.
Yeah, really.
Thank you.
Some covert operations.